Picture this. It's late 11th century Baghdad. Not the storybook Baghdad, an actual working city with dust in the air, ink on fingers, and money changing hands all day long. You're walking through a bazaar where everything is negotiable. Silk, spices, paper, metalwork, and reputation. A merchant is weighing something on a scale, and you can almost hear the quiet question hanging over the stall like a sign. Is this fair? Or is this a trap? Because here's the uncomfortable truth about markets, then and now. Markets don't just move goods. They move incentives. They reward certain behaviors. And if the incentives are off, the whole place starts to feel slippery. How much cheating can a city survive before trade slows down? How much distrust before prices stop meaning anything? Now enter Abu Hamid Al-Ghazali, born in Tus around 1058, and later one of the most influential Muslim theologians and jurists of his era. If you only know him as the guy who critiqued philosophers, you're not wrong, but you're missing the most practical side of his legacy. Because Al-Ghazali looked at the marketplace and basically said, you're not just buying bread and cloth in there, you're buying habits. You're buying a character. You're buying a kind of person you're becoming. And that is where the story gets interesting for financial storytelling. Al-Ghazali didn't live in a quiet corner of history. He lived inside a world where scholarship was power, where institutions mattered, where rulers needed legitimacy, and where trade was a lifeline stretching across cities and seas. Baghdad, under Seljuk political dominance with the Abbasid Caliph still symbolically central, was a place where the rules of society were constantly being argued, taught, and enforced. In that setting, moral order wasn't just spiritual, it was infrastructure, and Al-Ghazali rose fast. He became a prominent teacher associated with the Nizamiya in Baghdad, an elite intellectual stage. That's like being handed a microphone in the busiest room in the empire. But then something happens that historians discuss in different ways. By his own account, he experienced a deep personal crisis and stepped away from his position, leaving Baghdad in the 1090s. Whether you read it as spiritual transformation, political pressure, exhaustion, or some mixture, the pivot is real. He walks away from status and salary, and later returns to writing and teaching under different terms. Now pause there. Imagine you are in a world where career and patronage are the safety net, where being in the system is how you eat, how you teach, how your work spreads. And a top scholar says, no, I need to recheck what all of this is doing to the soul. That's not a small move. That's a decision with financial consequences. And it's exactly why his later work hits so hard. Because Al-Ghazali's big project, most famously Ihya Ulum al-Din, the revival of the religious sciences, is basically a massive attempt to reconnect everyday life to moral purpose. Not just prayer, not just fasting, not just abstract theology. Everyday life, including earning, including spending, including what happens when you're tempted to bend the truth because the customer will never know. He even treats earning and livelihood as a serious moral topic in its own right, discussed in a section often referred to as Kitab Adab al-Kasb wa al-Ma'ash, the propriety/etiquette of earning and living, commonly presented as part of the Ihya tradition. And here's the twist that makes him feel surprisingly modern without dragging him into modern politics. He's not preaching money is evil. He's diagnosing how money works on people. Money is a tool, sure, but it's also a mirror. It reveals what you'll do when nobody is watching. It exposes your real-time preference. Will you sacrifice long-term trust for short-term gain? Will you hoard when you're scared? Will you exploit a weak buyer? Will you justify it with fancy reasoning? In other words, Al-Ghazali is asking how a society builds an economy that doesn't quietly train everyone to become a professional rationalizer. And he's doing it in an era when trust is expensive. Think about a merchant caravan. Think about credit. Think about long-distance trade where you can't instantly verify quality, you can't do a quick online review, and your legal system might be slow or uneven. In that world, moral norms are not cute extras. They're what keeps the wheels turning. The infrastructure of trade isn't only roads and guards. It's honesty, predictable behavior, and shame around fraud. Scholars who study Al-Ghazali's economic thought often highlight themes like ethical behavior in markets, criticism of hoarding, and the idea that social cooperation and justice are conditions for economic well-being, though the exact emphasis can differ depending on how you read and contextualize his texts. So when we say he linked money to morality, we're not saying he wrote a medieval personal finance blog. We're saying he treated financial life as character formation, and character formation as social stability. Because if the market trains greed, you don't just get a few bad merchants. You get a culture where trust decays. And once trust decays, everything gets more expensive. Transactions cost more. Enforcement costs more. People start pricing in betrayal. So here's the question that opens the door to the rest of this story. What if Al-Ghazali's real genius wasn't only theological, but incentive design? What if he was trying to build a society where the profit motive is real, but boxed in by moral guardrails strong enough to keep the market from eating the community alive? And if that's the case, then his work isn't just about religion in the abstract. It's about how you keep money from becoming the only thing that makes sense. Because the moment money becomes the only thing that makes sense, everything else starts to feel like a scam. And Al-Ghazali wanted to stop that before it became the default setting. The reason Al-Ghazali is so useful for financial storytelling is that he treats money like a social technology, not a shiny object. In his world, coins weren't just metal. They were trust you could hold in your hand. Think about what a gold dinar or silver dirham actually does. You can't eat it. You can't wear it. You can't plant it and harvest more coins. Its power comes from agreement. Everyone in the market decides collectively, yes, this stands in for value. And once people accept that, trade becomes smoother. A baker doesn't need to barter bread for shoes every single day. A carpenter can specialize. A traveler can cross regions without carrying a cart full of goods. Money turns I have this into I can access what I need, and that's a kind of civilizational upgrade. But Al-Ghazali's next move is the one that raises the stakes. If money is built on agreement and trust, then misusing money isn't only a private moral issue. It's like messing with the wiring in your city. Sure, the lights might still work for a bit until they don't. That's why he keeps pulling the conversation back to behavior in the marketplace. Weights, measures, honesty, contracts, fairness, and the slippery ways people talk themselves into small frauds. Not because he enjoyed scolding merchants, but because he understood incentives. If a market quietly rewards deception, deception spreads. If it rewards fair dealing spreads. People learn what works, and then they call it normal. And he was writing in a time when normal mattered. Long-distance trade across the Islamic world depended on reputation and predictable rules. You can't run an economy on constant suspicion. If every transaction needs a guard, a judge, and a threat, everything becomes slower and more expensive. Trust is not soft, it's cost-saving. So Al-Ghazali starts doing something that feels almost like moral accounting. He's not saying avoid money. He's saying watch what money does to you. The real danger isn't that you have wealth. The danger is when wealth starts training your soul the way repetition trains a muscle. Because money has a quiet talent. It turns desires into plans. You want comfort, and money can buy it. You want status, and money can display it. You want security, and money can stack up like a wall between you and fear. And none of those wants are automatically evil. Some are completely reasonable. You have a family, you have responsibilities, you have a future. Al-Ghazali recognizes that people need to earn, and that work and trade can be honorable. But he's allergic to the moment money stops being a means and becomes the meaning. When money becomes the meaning, you get a particular kind of cleverness, the kind that can justify anything. You start hearing phrases like, it's just business, or everyone does it, or if I don't do it, someone else will. That's not a financial argument. That's a moral sedative. And this is where his lens gets really practical. He ties the ethics of earning to the health of the community. It's not only about personal salvation. It's about what kind of society you're helping to build every time you choose profit over fairness or fairness over profit. Let's put you in a scene. It's a busy market day. A grain seller has sacks of wheat, and there's rumor of a shortage. People are anxious. Some are buying extra because they're scared. You, As the seller, feel the pressure and you see the opportunity. If you hold back some stock, you might sell later at a higher price. Nobody can physically force you to put every sack on the stall today. You can tell yourself you're being strategic. You can even dress it up as risk management. Now here's the uncomfortable question Al-Ghazali forces into the air. Are you protecting yourself, or are you exploiting everyone else's fear? Because if you intentionally restrict necessities to push prices upward, you're not just making a profit. You're turning public anxiety into private gain. You're converting hardship into a business model. And in a world where bread is not optional, that can ripple fast, the poor suffer first, then resentment spreads, then trust in the market collapses, then even honest sellers get treated like villains. The seller can answer, but I have a family too, and that's fair. Al-Ghazali doesn't pretend merchants are angels. He just insists that moral lines exist precisely because life is messy. Ethics matter most when the temptation makes sense. So what does he offer instead of vague holiness? He leans on a simple standard. Lawful earning and fair dealing are not decorative, they are foundational. If you want a society that doesn't fracture under pressure, you need people who refuse to make a killing when everyone else is bleeding. Not because they're naive, but because they understand the long game. Short-term profit can be real, but so is long-term backlash. And this is where the tone of his project becomes almost oddly optimistic. He believes people can train themselves. He believes habits can reshape desires. He believes you can be in the market without letting the market move into your chest and start rearranging the furniture. He also talks like someone who has seen spiritual people make financial excuses and financial people make spiritual excuses. So he keeps returning to intention, because intention is the hidden engine. Two people can make the same amount of money in the same kind of work, and one is being shaped into generosity and restraint, while the other is being shaped into arrogance and hunger. Same income, different inner outcome. That's why he's so focused on the everyday details. Not just don't steal, but don't lie in ways that sound like truth. Don't manipulate language. Don't hide defects. Don't game the scale. Don't pretend the buyer is choosing freely when you're pressuring them with half information. If you're thinking, okay, but who does that? The honest answer is, people do. All the time. Sometimes without even noticing they've become that person. He's basically saying, your wallet has a personality. Feed it wrong and it grows teeth. And when he talks about charity and giving, it's not only about transferring resources. It's also about breaking the spell money can cast. Giving becomes a kind of self-defense. It loosens the grip of hoarding and fear. It reminds you that wealth is not an identity. It's a tool that should move like blood in the body. When it stops moving, the body gets sick. When wealth stops circulating in a community, the social body starts to feel cold. Now bring this closer to home without dragging it into modern politics. Have you ever noticed how easy it is to become reasonable when money is involved? Like how quickly we can explain away a small exaggeration on a listing, a hidden fee, a misleading promise, a delayed payment to someone who can't push back. We don't wake up and announce, today I will be unfair. We wake up and say, I'm busy, it's complicated, I'll fix it later. And later becomes a habit. Al-Ghazali is trying to interrupt that pattern early, before it becomes your default setting. He's also realistic about the social side of it. If the culture celebrates only the flashy winner, people will chase flash. If the culture respects trustworthiness and fair dealing, more people will choose it. Incentives aren't only economic. They're reputational. They're spiritual. They're social. The market is a classroom, and everyone is learning what gets rewarded. So the body of his message is almost a challenge. Can you succeed without selling pieces of yourself for the win? Can you earn without slowly becoming the kind of person nobody trusts? Can you trade and still keep your inner life intact? Because if you can, the payoff isn't just being good. The payoff is stability. It's relationships that last. It's a community where deals don't require paranoia. It's a society where money is powerful, but it's not the only god in the room. And that's the bridge he builds. Morality isn't the enemy of markets. It's the thing that keeps markets from turning into a machine that eats the people who built it. So here's where I want to land this plane, back where we started. Standing in that medieval market with dust in the air, scales creaking, coins clinking, and everyone pretending the transaction is only about the thing being sold. Because Al-Ghazali's biggest aha isn't complicated. It's almost annoyingly simple. Money is never just money. It's a teacher. Every time you earn, spend, save, negotiate, discount, upsell, hide a flaw, exaggerate a benefit, delay a payment, cut a corner, refuse a bribe, pay someone fairly, forgive a debt, or take advantage of someone's confusion, money is quietly training you. Not in a motivational poster way, in the most real-world way possible, by rewarding certain choices and making other choices feel expensive. And that's why his work still hits. He wasn't writing from a fantasy world where everyone is pure. He was writing in a world that ran on trade, reputation, and human weakness. A world where somebody always had an excuse, and somebody always had a loophole, and somebody always had a justification that sounded smart. He basically looked at society and said, if we don't talk about the soul inside the marketplace will start writing the soul for us. Now, let's be honest. Most of us like the idea of morality until it costs us something. We love ethics when it's convenient. But the moment we're behind schedule, under pressure, trying to hit a target, dealing with a difficult client, or feeling broke, suddenly the moral lines start looking negotiable. Suddenly, just this one sounds like wisdom. And that's exactly why Al-Ghazali keeps pulling the camera back to intention and habit. Because the danger isn't a single bad decision. The danger is the new normal your decisions create. The danger is when your conscience stops being a referee and becomes your public relations manager. The way he frames it is almost like a warning label. Money can become a tool for survival or a tool for self-deception. It can buy comfort or it can buy excuses. It can build stability or it can build a cage where you're constantly feeding a hunger that never thanks you. And here's the part one find weirdly comforting. He doesn't say the answer is to run away from the world. He doesn't say be broke to be holy. He says the answer is to stay awake inside the world. To keep your inner life from being outsourced to whatever pays the fastest. Because if money is a teacher, then the question becomes, who's teaching you right now? Your values or your impulses? And yes, this is where it gets a little uncomfortable, because we all know what it feels like when a market starts whispering in your ear. You know that voice. It's not always evil. Sometimes it sounds like be smart. Sometimes it sounds like protect yourself. Sometimes it sounds like don't be naive. Sometimes it sounds like this is how the game is played. But Al-Ghazali would ask something sharper. Is the game making you smaller? Is it turning you into someone who only respects people who can pay? Someone who only tells the truth when it's profitable? Someone whose generosity is basically marketing? Someone who can't enjoy what they have because they're always comparing it to what someone else has? And if you're thinking, okay, but what's the alternative? Just be taken advantage of? No, not all. Fair dealing isn't the same as being weak. Boundaries aren't the same as greed. You can price your work properly and still be honest. You can negotiate hard and still be fair. You can build wealth and still keep your heart intact. The point is not to reject money. The point is to reject the idea that money is morally neutral. Because that money is neutral idea sounds modern and sophisticated, but it can also be a trapdoor. If money is neutral, then anything that makes money can be justified. If profit is the only scoreboard, then character becomes a costume you wear when you don't need the cash. And this is where I'm going to drop the controversial statement. One that people don't like because it hits too close to home. If your income requires you to become someone you wouldn't trust, then it's not a career. It's a slow-motion self-betrayal. Yeah, that's spicy, but sit with it. Because what's the real cost of a deal that makes you feel slightly ashamed when you explain it? What's the real cost of a business model that only works when customers don't fully understand what they're buying? What's the real cost of winning in a way that teaches you to stop caring? We don't usually count those costs. We count revenue. We count growth. We count followers. We count the shiny stuff. But Al-Ghazali would say, you're missing the most important ledger. the ledger inside you. And maybe that's why his message feels so relevant. In any era, medieval or modern, economies don't collapse only because of bad math. They collapse when trust collapses. When everyone assumes everyone else is trying to cheat. When the default stance becomes suspicion. And then everything gets harder. Not just for society, but for you personally. Deals take longer. Relationships get transactional. People start protecting themselves from you before you even speak. So if we want a life that isn't haunted by constant anxiety, we can't treat moral restraint like a luxury. It's a strategy. It's long-term thinking. It's choosing a kind of wealth you can sleep next to. Because here's another uncomfortable truth. Money can buy comfort, but can't buy clean conscience. Not for long. You can silence it for a while. You can distract yourself. You can upgrade your surroundings. But eventually, your own standards catch up to you. And if they don't, that's an even bigger problem because it means the teacher has finished the lesson. So what does that leave us? It leaves us with a simple question you can carry into every transaction. Who am I becoming because of the way I handle money? Not how much did I make? That's important, yes. But also, what did I trade for it? What did I justify? What did I normalize? Who did I become in the process? And here's the hopeful part. You can change the lesson. You can retrain the habit. You can decide that your reputation is worth more than a quick win. You can decide that fair dealing is not just nice, but intelligent. You can decide that your future self deserves better than the person you become when you're chasing profit with no guardrails. Now I want to make this personal because I don't want this to be one of those videos you nod to and forget. Tell me in the comments, what's the most tempting moral shortcut you've seen in money and business? Either something you faced personally or something you watch other people do. What did it cost them in the long run? Or did it work for them? And if it worked, how did it change them? And if you're comfortable, share one moment where you chose the harder right over the easier wrong. One decision where you protected your integrity even though it cost you something. I read the comments, and I'm going to reach out to some of you directly because I want this channel to feel like a real conversation, not a lecture from a distance. If your story hits, I'll respond and we'll talk about it. Because that's the real legacy of Al-Ghazali in a financial storytelling sense. He doesn't just give you ideas. He gives you a mirror, and the mirror asks, quietly but relentlessly, when the coin hits your hand, what kind of person stands there to catch it?